Hi everyone, thank you very much for stopping by and returning to the old world. Today we're talking about 6 things that will make Warhammer Old World a good product. Quick caveat, I have absolutely zero inside knowledge. This is purely an opinion piece, hopefully to engage and to entertain. So what are these 6 things to make Warhammer the Old World good? Well, coming in at number 1, we have pre-measurement, or rather, no pre-measurement. This takes away the pinpoint accuracy of cannon. It adds a certain skill of being able to judge distance rather than just measure and do some maths. And it takes away some of the less forced randomness, taking out dice rolls potentially for charges, etc., etc., because you don't know exactly where things are going, because you've got to work it out by yourself. With the pre-measurement, I'm very much minded to think about the first edition of X-Wing, which was, let's face it, a very easy game to learn, but also a very difficult game to get good at. And a large part of that game was working out where your opposition ships were going to end up and where you needed to put your ships as a result. You did it through working out available maneuvers to the ships, looking at the board and trying to picture in your mind's eye where the ships would end up. It was all about judgment calls. It was all around seeing the distances, not being able to measure them. And I think it will be a welcome addition for Warhammer Old World to go back to the world where you didn't know exactly how far everything was away from each other. What about number 2? Well, number 2 is probably my favourite rule from 8th edition, which is step up. I think this needs to stay in the game. Well, why? Well, what is it? Step up is effectively, if models are killed in combat, the guys in the rear ranks or the girls in the rear ranks get to fight. In earlier editions of Warhammer, if you were charged and your front rank got wiped out, you couldn't fight back at all. So it was very difficult then to survive that charge. Step up mitigates the risk of being charged. It makes slow moving, lower initiative infantry actually a bit more durable, a bit more useful. And as someone who's producing a dwarf army at the moment, I'm all about slow, low initiative forces that need a bit of help dishing out the pain. And if we think about it from a reality perspective, if 2 units start fighting, it's not a case of one unit always goes first and the receiving unit just does nothing about it. Combat's a lot more of a simultaneous thing, the hack and slash going both ways. So, particularly even if the charger does come in and wipe out the first rank because they've got longer weapons or whatever, as they crash into the unit, it'll become more of a general melee. They'll be fighting back. So I think really important the step up remains. Number 3, combined profiles. This is purely just a quality of life thing, not having to worry about attacks from this monster, attacks from this arm, this leg, this warrior that's on it, etc. One profile just makes life a little bit simpler, although I do accept that for those of you who want the more roleplay element to it, the days of monstrous creatures being ridden, flying high, you kill the monster and the character then plummets several hundred feet to their doom, would have a certain appeal. But if we're trying to keep things simple, keep things accessible, just need the one profile. I think it's not that much of a stretch. Let's move on now to item number 4. Magic. The game needs balanced magic, and it doesn't need doom spells. So wizards are important for Warhammer. They always have been, they probably always will be. but they need to supplement your army and not be what you base everything around. By 8th ed, let's face it, the first pick, if you could get one for your army, was generally, I'll need a lord, level 4, tick. Give him the big doom spell, tick. Is there any way I can make him more reliable so I can 6 dice the big spell that will crucify my opponent? Sure, have spells that do damage, have spells that do quite a significant amount of damage. But magic shouldn't be game breaking, it shouldn't be what it's all about. Mages, I see them very much more of being a support character, chucking out a bit of damage here, a buff here, a debuff there, things like that. Adding tactical nuance to how you use your wizards, not just, I 6 dice this big thing, enemy unit goes dead. It's just no fun. And I think it's something that Games Workshop has always struggled with. Let's move on to item number 5. Disrupting Steadfast. Now, Steadfast, I have absolutely no problem with that. A big unit of infantry deployed in depth. Again, looking from a more realistic perspective, those at the back are not going to know what's going on at the front. Once 2 units collide, they'll probably just be pushing the guys in front of them to try and help out with the general pushing and fighting that's going on. They're not going to be able to distinguish from the cries of the wounded, etc., which side's going well, which side's going badly, until things start to go really badly. So, Steadfast, if you've got a deep unit, it makes sense, because the guys at the back aren't just going to run away at the drop of a hat. However, it needs to be disruptible. So, Steadfast really depends on that structure being there, people not knowing what's going on around them, and discipline holding. When that discipline breaks down, that's when things can go wrong much more easily. What does this mean? Well, it means a flank charge, a rear charge, something that the unit wouldn't be expecting should take away its ability to hold its ground as effectively. So, charge a unit of 50 Skaven slaves in the face. Sure, you're going to kill a load. The ones at the front might want to try and run away and not be there, but they're just going to be held up by the press of the Skaven slaves behind them, pushing forward, driving them into the enemy. Take that very same unit in the flank or rear, and suddenly things are very different. There's clearly contact from a side you weren't expecting it. The ranks start to break down. It becomes disordered. There's room to flee, and the unit starts to disintegrate that much quicker when put under significant pressure. And what about number 6? What is the final item to make Warhammer good? And that, I think, is dealing with hordes. Get rid of the rule, it's not necessary. It led to bloated units that really impacted accessibility certainly by the middle of 8th edition, really. Buying 3, 4, 5 packs of the same thing just to field one unit. It's not great. They need to take a leaf out of old GW book, or even really from the 40k side, where if you buy a box, you can paint the contents of that box up and it's a viable unit. Certainly from the size wise. If you buy a box of Space Marines, you get your 10 Marines, that's a unit, job done. Unit sizes either need to be capped, or more realistically, players not encouraged to take absolutely gigantic units. There's no need for it. Smaller units allow for a bit more tactical nuance, a bit more interesting use of the space. Now, I'm not saying that units shouldn't be large, and some races, big units make sense. Night Goblins, a big mass of them, big mass of Skaven slaves, which I mentioned earlier. Absolutely, that all makes so much sense. But a huge wall of dwarves with great axes. Just no, it's not. It just doesn't seem right, and it did take away a lot from both the gameplay and the accessibility experience. So there we have it, 6 things which I think would help make Warhammer the Old World a good product and make it a nice, smooth game system. No pre-measurement, maintaining step up, combining profiles from monstrous creatures, having actually balanced magic without the big doom spells, being able to disrupt Steadfast, and not having a game dominated by the Horde Rule. Have you got any rules you particularly like to see in Warhammer the Old World? In particular rules you'd like to see Games Workshop throw right in the bin? Let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you very much for stopping by. I'm Return to the Old World. If you've enjoyed the content of this video and want to see some more of what I do consider dropping a like and subscribe. Have a great day.